So the leader I chose for my leader interview is Mark Huddy. He's the director of the Office of Social Concerns at the Diocese of Columbus, and he works a lot with poverty alleviation. The reason that I sort of learned about him in the first place is because he supports our Catholic Relief Services chapter indirectly, but quite strongly. So though I have not had the opportunity to talk with him directly, I know that he supports the ministry that I'm a part of, that's social justice focused within the church, and we know that he has a long history of advocacy in this poverty alleviation area. So, given the fact that, as I said, I hadn't really met him directly before the interview, I still had the perceptions that he was a very calm and collected individual, who's very trusting of those he'd worked with. These perceptions were based off of, I have seen him speak at a couple of events here and there, and again, seemed to be very put together individual. Somebody who sort of takes his time while he's speaking, very reflective. And also through secondhand information. The person who works with us more directly at the diocese, named Erin Cordell, is his direct supervisee, and she talks about what it's like to work for him. And she said that he's a very trusting person, and that makes it an enjoyable workplace. So in the interview, I think the key leadership characteristics that I kind of really saw over and over again, he spoke a lot about servant leadership. That servanthood that we talked about with the 21 indispensable characteristics of a leader, that was for him basically number one. The poverty alleviation work that he's done, he was able to talk about how it's, what is it like to engage in a topic like that that's difficult to talk about, has very real emotional and human implications. He says that it really comes down to patience. It's very tolling work, but he is able to remain patient by remembering the long-term vision. So he talks a lot about vision and looking down the road, and he knows that poverty is going to be around for a long time. So he said patience with oneself and with others is key. He also talked about what he called a gentle but incisive introspection is the way that he termed it. And what that did for him was that gave him, also tied back to patience, but more so humility and a willingness to try new things. So because he was able to sort of recognize where, his humanity held him back, where he's made mistakes like anybody else, that allows him to not be super attached to the way that things were done, or to notoriety, or to a lot of the formalities and bureaucracy that can get tied up in organizational work. Instead, he's there to get the job done and make a difference on the ground. So he's willing to be open and adaptable and trying new things to make that happen. So after the interview, I would say that he's definitely, my perceptions were frankly confirmed. I mean, one-on-one, he's very slow-paced. He takes a long time to sort of, flesh out what he's talking about. He wants to think something through before he speaks about it, and I think that that's certainly a very wonderful quality to have. Very clear, very deep speaker and communicator. So a little different than the typical stereotype that we might have of leaders, where they're more energetic and concise and hard-hitting and maybe even bombastic. He is none of these things. Instead, he gives off this air of a very deep groundedness and just something that sort of says he will not be moved despite the obstacles and the challenges that surround the office and the larger community. So it's just somebody who really knows who he is and why he's there, and that's how he leads. It's trusting, it's more subtle, and it's slow, but it's steadfast, very steadfast. Now, as far as the key statements are concerned, I'd say the main one that stuck out to me was, he said, leadership, in my opinion, is all about planting seeds. So again, getting back to that visioning and he said that that's the difference between the master builder and the worker. We are not going to see the end results of our work. Poverty has been with us for ages and will continue to be. But we still keep at it because, again, it's a marathon and not a sprint. So having that patience and that dedication and knowing where we fit into the vision as workers, not master builders. And that is also what allows him to invest in those he works with, because he knows he's not going to be around forever. And so his leadership model is very empowering. He empowers those around him to make a difference on their own. And that is how he leads, a model of empowerment.